Good evening. I call to order the public hearing pursuant to ARS 15-905 for the Cave Creek Unified School District, number 93 Governing Board. It's Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, and it's 6 p.m. 1.2, public comments. The public hearing is being held to receive comments from the public on the revised 2021-2022 budget. Are there any comments? Nada. Okay. Then is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Public hearing is adjourned. Number 2, the business meeting. 2.1, call to order. I call to order the business meeting of the Cave Creek Unified School District, number 93 Governing Board. It's Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, and it is 6:01. 2.2, roll call. All 5 board members are present, and there is a quorum. Present from the cabinet are Dr. Monroe, Dr. Jensen, Ms. Rodriguez, and Mrs. Scott. Item 2.3, formal adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. I'd like to pull out 6.2.
Okay.
I would also request to pull out 6.6 and to place that, if possibly, after agenda item 9.1, and then to also pull out item 6.7, and we can just slide that in right after the action consent.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. The agenda is adopted as amended. 2.4, call to fill out forms for call to the public. We have several, so an admonition will be read in a few minutes. 2.5, Pledge of Allegiance. We have Zachary Green, a second grader from Horseshoe Trails, who will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Zachary. Item 2.6, President's Report. I met with, along with Dr. Monroe and Ms. Rodriguez, met with Representative Michelle Udall and Steve Kaiser for the purpose of bringing to the attention the unique aspect about funding for the CCUSD. So we just wanted to get on their radar. I will tell you that Ms. Udall had an aide with her who was very knowledgeable and also had his laptop, and Ms. Rodriguez went toe-to-toe with him on the facts, and it was good. I also met with LD Senate candidate Jan Duboskus. Dr. Monroe and Ms. Rodriguez were there also. Again, it was for the same purpose, for me at least. My purpose is getting in front of legislators, legislative candidates, so that we are on their radar in terms of the funding formula. So that was my purpose of doing that. I attended the Desert Willow recognition ceremony for Tolly Peterson, Lisa Tibbetts, and Trish Verdi, who are retiring after a long and esteemed career here. And I'd like to thank Desert Willow. Desert Willow's principal, I think, is in here, for allowing me to volunteer all year at Desert Willow this year. I worked with a little guy who is not an English speaker, so that was quite gratifying, so thank you. And that is it for me. 2.7 board comments.
I attended the Cactus Shadows Coffee with the Superintendent, and I want to thank the community members that came, and any community member that hasn't attended one of the coffees with the superintendent, I strongly encourage you to attend. It's a great way to get some kind of one-on-one time with some staff, the superintendent, board members. And of course, today I went to Everybody Day at Lone Mountain, and it was an awesome event. It was great to see the interaction with PALS kids and the Gen Ed kids, and thank you to the Lone Mountain PTO for all of their work that went into it, because it was very well run and it was an awesome event. And last night, this really isn't a Cave Creek thing, but I attended the Kiwanis scholarship event. And first of all, thank you again, Mr. Cupo, for all of your help. 29 of the 32 students that received awards from Kiwanis were Cactus Shadows seniors. And Kiwanis handed out $350,000 in scholarships and merit awards. And thank you to the staff and administration that attended the event last night.
Great. Anyone else?
Sure. I recently attended the Senior 1X. Thank you, Mr. Cupo. That was really fun. All the seniors direct, and they host auditions and everything for the entire scene. So that was really incredible to see kind of what they go through and kind of how their perspective on, you know, what they read on paper and make that come to life. We had the carnival at Black Mountain Elementary, so I attended that. That was a lot of fun. Even my shy kid had a mic, so kudos to Miss Kim in the music department. And I think that's about it. Looking forward to next week with all the graduations.
I had a kind of a busy calendar since our last business meeting, so I'll try to go through my list quick here. Back in April 13th, I attended the kindergarten roundup at Desert Sun Academy. They had that in the after school there in their STEM lab, which was great. The kids were all over all of the neat STEM items and just really getting involved. So I think we got that group hooked to come back in the fall. Also on the 13th, was up at the Fine Arts Center to see the Black Mountain Elementary School's production of The Jungle Book, which was a great show. All the young men and young ladies did a fine job up there on the stage. No stage fright at all. So congrats to them and everybody that helped them put that on. Also attended a coffee with the superintendent, and then we had our final Employee of the Month breakfast that the Summit Diner hosts for us. Myself and Member Walker attended that together, and it's always good to meet different people out of the different departments that maybe have been with the district a long time that I haven't had a chance to come across in the years that my kids were coming up through their grades. So it's a great event for us to recognize those Employee of the Month employees. We also attended the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. There was a public presentation about a possible cadet program, and then the following night there was a parent presentation about a possible adding boys volleyball and girls sand volleyball presentation that was made to parents. So I wanted to attend those and see what the information was and the feedback from the parents at those two events. And feedback was really good. So fingers crossed on both of those programs coming on board in the fall. Last night, also attended the Kiwanis Scholarship Awards night at the Fine Arts Center. And like Member Busby said, 29 of the 32 students that were awarded scholarships were Cactus Shadows seniors. So that's an outstanding group, very well deserved. And then again, this afternoon, attended the Everybody Day at Lone Mountain. And just to echo Member Busby, it was a great event. PTO volunteers, parents, all the PALS kids. It was an outstanding afternoon. Well, they had a morning event and the afternoon event, and just an outstanding day for all those involved. And just a huge thank you to everybody that was able to volunteer and participate in that. And that's it.
Member Fortney? Okay, thank you, Board. Item 2.8, Superintendent's Report.
President Hatcher, members of the board, the next week and a half is going to be fun. It's going to be full of end-of-the-year recognitions, concerts, events, final exams, school celebrations. Similar to the last 2 weeks, there's been a lot of exciting things happen to bring our parents and have our teachers and students celebrate. Everything will culminate next week with our Cactus Shadows High School graduation at GCU, which I am very, very excited for. I wish everyone of fun and meaningful end of the school year as we wind down. Today, Lone Mountain, as you've heard, had their Everybody Day event. Let me just read the purpose of that. The Everybody Day is designed to celebrate the unique strengths of everyone, to specifically focus on the unique gifts our students with disabilities bring to the community. The day today was designed to educate and engage the school community at Lone Mountain in shared experiences that recognize what it may be like to live as a student with autism, language delay, a sensory processing dispenser, or other disabilities that affect students in our classrooms. I was able to be there in the morning session. I believe it to have been a very meaningful day. My heart was very touched by the things that I saw in the morning. And I want to just thank Mrs. Hill, Mr. Karpinski, our wonderful parents and volunteers, the Lone Mountain staff, and all those who made the day possible. Yesterday morning, we were notified that the Cave Creek Unified School District received the Association of School Business Officials Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for the fiscal year ending 2021. I'm very proud to say that this award represents a significant achievement. It reflects our district's commitment to transparency, responsibility, and trust to our taxpayers, and high-quality financial reporting. We've been very fortunate to receive this recognition on financial reporting for the past several years in Cave Creek, and I'd like to recognize Mrs. Rodriguez and her department for their continued work in this area. Thank you, Marcy. I'd like to congratulate Cactus Shadows High School student athlete Jacob Harris. If you haven't heard, Jacob, who's a soccer player, signed to a Phoenix Rising FC Soccer USL Academy contract. The contract allows players to retain their college eligibility while also being eligible to play for the USL Championship and the Lamar Hunt US Open Cup, which is professional. The Superintendent's Challenge involves volunteering, students volunteering and giving of their time freely to the community. We had 50 seniors who worked on the Superintendent's Challenge, and 27 seniors completed the challenge for their entire 4 years at Cactus Shadows. The seniors logged over 9,000 hours of community service. 24 of our 8th graders also participated in the Superintendent's Challenge, which is very exciting. They contributed over 250 hours of community service. And that 9,000, I may have to check, that may be 900. I want to thank the students for their meaningful volunteerism in the community. That is something that's very important to the superintendent as our students graduate high school and go out into the world. A little summary for our sports. Our boys baseball from Cactus Shadows High School made the regional playoffs. Our girls softball is in Tucson right now. It's either the second or third round of playoffs, and they're in an elimination game. So everybody think positive thoughts. We're cheering them on from afar, and I was able to go with Mrs. Barella and Mrs. Scott to the bus to send them off and give them some well wishes. So down there in Tucson competing. So, go Suns tonight and go Falcon softball. Our boys and girls track still have some athletes competing in the state with the final state competition this Saturday at Glendale Community College. Our girls tennis had a wonderful season. They made it to the quarterfinals. I was able to actually attend part of the matches. Emma Hansen, Emma Crum played doubles in round 2, while Sydney Smith and Ellie McDonough made it to the quarterfinals. Nadia Barreto, hopefully I'm saying her last name correctly. I apologize if I'm not. She made it to the quarterfinals in singles. I want to congratulate our girls tennis program, which continues to improve. And finally, our varsity girls lacrosse, which is one of our club sports, ended the regular season in first place. Not to be outdone is our Sonoran Trails Middle School Stingers this spring. The boys track finished as conference champions. The girls track finished in second place. 7th grade boys baseball team were conference champions, and our 8th grade baseball team finished second. And then our 8th grade girls softball team finished as conference champions. Just a few more things to highlight. 2 weeks ago, Cactus Shadows had their spring dance concert at the Fine Arts Center. It was a tremendous event, and the night I went was actually sold out. It was called Renewal. That was the title of the concert. And I want to congratulate Mrs. Erickson, Mrs. Vago, the crew, and all the student performers who performed. Truly, the arts are alive in Cave Creek. Member Busby mentioned our Kiwanis night last night. As I was able to sit in the audience, I was filled with pride for the 29 Cactus Shadows High School students who earned scholarships. We are very, very grateful for partnerships in this community, such as Kiwanis, who support our students, teachers, and our classrooms. As Member Busby mentioned, $350,000 in scholarships, and the majority of those were for our Cactus Shadows High School graduates. 2 weeks ago, we had our Teacher Appreciation Week, which always marks a wonderful May, where the teachers can be thanked by their community and their PTOs. There were gift bags, massage chairs, nacho bar cook-offs, sweet treats, ice cream floats, just to name a few that we're seeing around our schools. We cannot say enough about our amazing teachers. Thank you, teachers, for your daily commitment to the students. Teachers, we are with you. Finally, Cactus Shadows High School student athletes Paige Hammerstrom and Chloe Tarkany have both been individually nominated for the 21-22 Girls Golfer of the Year in the state of Arizona. Jacob Stewart has been nominated for Defensive Football Player of the Year, and Madeline Bachmeyer has been nominated for the Girls Swimmer of the Year. The Arizona High School Sports Award winners will be announced on June 11th at Gamage in Tempe. And this is my report.
Thank you. Number 3, presentation of awards for schools and departments. 3.1, Educational and Community Services, ECS Excellence Awards, presented by Dr. Monroe, Jim Gross, and Elaine Villario.
All right, Jim and Elaine, you guys want to come up? Jim and Elaine represent the leadership of our Education and Community Services, and we have a few recognitions that we're going to do on their behalf. First, we'd like to invite up community member volunteer Brooke Loyland. Come on up, Brooke. Let's give her a round of applause. Brooke embodies the spirit of support and care for her family as well as Cave Creek Unified. She has been instrumental in getting a large grant to help support and grow our preschools and our Kids Club program. She's the treasurer of the PTO and a room mom at Lone Mountain. She is in the community as an advocate for Cave Creek Unified, our staff, and our programs. Brooke not only cares about her kids, but the well-being and education of all children in the district. We appreciate all Brooke has done, the support she gives, and the care that she has for this district, as well as this community. Thank you, Brooke, for all that you do. Okay, Nick Santa Cruz, come on up. Nick. Let me tell you about Nick. He is a teen assistant in our after-school kids club program. While he's only a junior in high school, Nick manages to maintain a 4.5, you heard that right, a 4.5 grade point average and works 5 days a week in our kids club program. That's an amazing work ethic. Nick has been such an impactful teen for our after-school kids. He started at Black Mountain, and now you can find him working at Desert Willow. His positive interaction with the kids has made him a huge favorite of the kids. He's a former road runner, and it just shows how much the CCUSD system of Spanish immersion is working at Desert Willow. He is fluent in Spanish and even has helped some of our college-age leaders with their Spanish. We'd like to thank Nick for being such a positive force in our after-school program. Congratulations. I think I was still a little taller than you, though, Nick. I'm not sure. And our most favorite recognition, Zachary Green. Come on up, Zach. He did a great job leading our Pledge of Allegiance, didn't he? Zach is a kind and talented second grade student from Horseshoe Trails Elementary School who participates in many education and community services programs, both Kids Club and enrichment. His involvement in Chess Emporium enrichment program is a recent area of excellence. He won third place in the 2021 Annual American Scholastic Chess Federation Best of Phoenix chess tournament. This, together with his 800-plus ASCF chess ranking, moves him to the Regional Governor Cup State Championship Tournament later this month, where he plays against middle and high school level players. Zachary is a very well-rounded student who loves sports, gets along well with others, and he initiates cleanup at Kids Club without being asked. And he's a great big brother to his preschool-aged brother. Congratulations, Zach.
You finished? Thank you. Number 4, public comments. 4.1, call to the public. We have several, so I'll read the admonition. According to ARS 38-431.01H, governing board members may not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during an open call to the public. The only allowable responses a governing board member may make are, number 1, board member may respond if there is direct criticism of the board member. 2, board member may direct staff to look into a matter. Or 3, board member can ask to have this item placed on a future agenda. Speakers need to be mindful of what they say when presenting to the board. Inappropriate comments could be considered slanderous. So each person will have 2 minutes. And the first speaker is Marla Riney.
Good evening, President Hatcher and the Governing Board. I'm actually speaking on behalf of Danny. I'm going to mess up his last name. I'm sorry. Thank you. It does not come off my tongue. He's the owner of Harold's. Thank you. He was unable to attend tonight. As I sat and listened at the last override meeting, I am positive the board will decide to put the override initiative on the next ballot. In my opinion, there really is no other option. We must increase teacher pay. As a small business owner in Cave Creek for over 30 years, we have seen our community grow and succeed, and a big part of that success is our A-plus school district. As a business owner, I know firsthand we are only as successful as our team that supports you. The challenges of hiring and retaining a great team has been the biggest challenge for any employer over the last few years. As a proud parent of 2 CCUSD students, a freshman and senior at Cactus Shadows, we have been blessed to have our children part of CCUSD from preschool to high school. The most important resource we have in our country is our children. Education is the most important thing we can provide for our children's success in life. Over the last 15 years, I've seen great teachers leave our district and class sizes grow. My son who takes capstone AP classes did not have an AP math teacher for over a month his sophomore year. The board would be doing the community and CCUSD teachers and staff a great disservice for not voting unanimously to move forward with the override. It is very important to go a maximum of the 15% for the override and find more ways to increase teachers' pay. We need to be at the top 25% of starting teachers' pay and teachers' average pay in Maricopa County. Initiating and passing this override will provide much-needed support for CCUSD.
Thank you. Next speaker, Gina Jackson.
Good evening, Governing Board. Thanks for having me. My name is Gina Jackson, and I'm here to speak about the GSA Club. I heard Jaylee Griffith talk about the GSA Club several times to this board. I'd like to ask if she knows what exactly is happening in the GSA Club. Her arguments have been on what could be happening in the GSA Club, but she can't report on what is actually happening in the GSA Club. Let me tell you what is happening for my child. Because of this club. Where she struggled to make connections with others, she has found friends in this club. She has gone from wanting to stay home in her room and staying after school and socializing. She wants to go to the mall with her friends now. She rarely misses a meeting, whereas in the past it was a struggle to get her in the car to do anything. These kids, or Miss Love, are not recruiting kids like other clubs. It's a volunteer club, and she 100% wants to be there. She doesn't fit in with a cheer team. We tried. The chess team, we tried. Music, taekwondo, tried and tried. GSA, she never misses a meeting. Let these kids fit in somewhere. Let me finish by saying the Federal Access Act says that a public high school allows students to form any non-curricular clubs. If they do at all, then they have to for all. And they have to also treat these non-curricular clubs equally. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jessica Bain, or Bain, I'm not quite sure.
Hello. I thought I had 3 minutes, so I'm going to try and go as fast as possible. First and foremost, I'm reaching out as a concerned parent. I really want to find a way and a solution for the safety of our children. I hope this is received as an opportunity for the community to come together to be safer and stronger. This school year has been a constant battle for my family. On 2 separate occasions this year.
Jessica, do you want someone to read it for you? Do you have a written statement? Okay.
I don't. My daughter has been groped, inappropriately touched, sexually harassed, and assaulted on campus. When I had the opportunity to go in and watch their surveillance of 10 minutes of my daughter being dragged towards a bathroom, I was told I was lucky that it was backed up on surveillance, because the majority of the school is not that lucky to be covered under surveillance. I have a lot to say, but what I am asking for is for this community in North Scottsdale and Cave Creek. We can do better. After researching, it is $140,000 to update the surveillance at Cactus Shadows. I am asking first and foremost for that to be done at Cactus Shadows, followed by it being done at Sonoran Trails. This is nothing new in our community. You guys are all aware of it. It needs to be stopped. We have to do better for our kids. I'm asking for signage and education in our classrooms. No means no. Every time. We need signs that say no consensual or non-consensual sexual relations on campus. Our children are worth it. At what point are we going to, and what steps are we going to take to assure this, that we take away the power from the aggressor and empower our youth to stand up and protect themselves?
So one of our options is to ask the district to look into what our speakers, and probably we would be unanimous in wanting that. So we will look into what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Dr. Monroe, can I ask that when you look into this, that you bring a report back at a board meeting so that it is made public what the district is going to do, or the steps that we can take to prevent something like this from happening again in the future?
Yes, we can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker, Kelly Love. Let's see, Kelly Love, you will have 4 minutes because you're speaking for John Love also.
Good evening, board members. It's good to see you all again. So I did have a lot to read because I thought it was more than just the 2 minutes, so I'll try to get through it quickly. I understand that some individuals are very confused about what my role as a school counselor is and what that looks like. So you can go to the American School Counselor Association website and it's all laid out there for you, but more specifically, it tells me my roles regarding the LGBTQ youth. It's a lot. So one of the first things is that my job as a school counselor is to counsel students with feelings about their sexual orientation and gender identity, as well as students' feelings about the identity of others in an accepting and non-judgmental manner. Another thing is that I provide a safe space for LGBTQ students and allies such as the Gay and Straight Alliance Club. Model language that is inclusive of sexual orientation and gender identity, and basically overall support and advocate for every single student, but more so for the marginalized student. I also have parents who were not able to be here tonight. Francesca Schultz, who's a licensed practical counselor, wanted to say, I support GSA because it gives my daughter a safe place to express her feelings and be supported. It gives her a place to feel accepted for who she is. She enjoys going to school because of GSA. Bill Snyder, my daughter Miriam is a member of GSA and enjoys it very much. The GSA should be viewed as a neutral on the subject of sexuality. It is not intended to discuss or explore the subject. It is simply a social group designed to give the non-standard binary student a place where they can feel comfortable. Normal day-to-day middle school certainly does not give them this courtesy or consideration. Some would like to believe that non-binary sexuality can be taught or forced upon impressionable teens. I have seen no evidence of this. Puberty is a time of confusion and exploration. Children need to figure out their place in the world, and that includes their sexuality. This has always been the case, despite the claims of those who see this as something new and insidious. The only difference was that previously the confused or non-binary student had to hide his or her feelings and pretend to be something they weren't. This led to a lifetime of living a lie, usually resulting in suicide, self-harm, or abusive relationships with others. Whatever happened, it wasn't good for that person or anybody else who knew and cared about them. The only political activity of the GSA is organizing to protest and oppose policies that are harmful to the LGBTQ community. I see no harm in that. As someone who grew up in the 60s and 70s, I am very familiar with student protests. It used to be about Vietnam. Now it's about intolerance and causeless hatred of others. Wrong is wrong. Nothing changes. I can see no good coming from banning GSA or removing Miss Love from her services at STMS. I can only see bad results as the non-binary students have a more difficult time at school, and the crowd who don't know how to mind their own bloody business get emboldened and increase their efforts to make everyone else miserable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Austin Kautzman.
So hi, my name is Austin. I'm an 8th grade student at Sonoran Trails Middle School, and I'm the president and co-founder of GSA. With our teacher, Mrs. Love, we have created a safe space for students to be themselves. Mrs. Love is incredibly educated and is more than able to support these students and talk about these topics. She is currently in the 2nd year of getting her Doctorate of Education in Community Care and Counseling. We have never and will never talk about anything sexual in GSA, nor do anything sexual in GSA Club. Yes, we do talk about romantic attraction. This is a normal thing in middle school relationships. You've seen it. You're just used to it being between a boy and a girl. We also talk about gender identity. And again, you've seen it. Many kids are able to grasp these ideas. I mean, we teach our children about boys and girls' bathrooms, boys wear pants and girls wear skirts, Mother's Day and Father's Day. We are protected under the Equal Access Act of 1984. This act helps protect freedom of speech and expression, especially in extracurricular clubs. We are not different than your average chess club or drama club. In our club, we help students grow, socialize, and learn. Now, being in GSA might make you more educated and accepting, but I don't see anywhere where it might have serious negative effects on you later in life. I love the community I have. I love Mrs. Love, and I love my fellow club members. And I sure plan to start another GSA when I move on to the high school next year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Carrie Katai.
Good evening, governing board members. My name is Carrie Katai, and I'm speaking to you tonight as both a CCUSD teacher and parent of a middle school and high school student in the district. I believe it is absolutely essential that our district goes for an M&O override this year. In my opinion, it is the only way to sustain a quality education for all CCUSD students in this district, including my own. I have been a teacher in this district for 8 years because I live in Cave Creek and love the community feel here. I am fortunate enough to have a spouse who can help support my family on my low salary. However, as we all know, this should not have to be the only way for teachers to be able to survive. We are losing out on talent to our surrounding districts, and the only way to compete is through an M&O override. Teachers are already in short supply across the state, but our low salaries in CCUSD compound this issue. As a parent, I am extremely concerned about staffing gaps at both the middle school and high school due to the higher salaries in these surrounding districts. Please vote yes on putting an M&O override on the ballot this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Luke Kautzman.
Thank you, President Hatcher, Vice President Fortney, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. President Hatcher, in honor of Mother's Day that was just passed, I wanted to thank you for your son and his service in the United States Marine Corps and continuing service in the Coast Guard, class of '98 at Cactus Shadows with me.
Yep, thank you.
CCUSD produces great lifelong learners, and really as parents, that's why we're back in this school district with 2 children of our own. One at Black Mountain, go Bobcats, and obviously I was hoping to speak before Austin and kind of set them up, but obviously a proud parenting moment right now I'm going through, seeing their composure and how they handle themselves. So obviously the student-led clubs are very important. I can think about growing up personally. You learn a lot from your parents, obviously. You do learn through, education, through going through school. But I think you gain the most knowledge and insight about yourself as you interact with peers and you grow up and you encounter challenges and adversity with a peer group. So I really support not just the GSA club, but all clubs, because, different strokes for different folks, obviously, as we heard someone say earlier. That clock is very imposing too. Yeah. We should get that. There's a council member here. I think that would be perfect for our town council meetings. And obviously Mrs. Love, the other thing she's working with an emphasis on traumatology and other things. Obviously the faculty in CCUSD is great. They're innovative, they're professional, they're enthusiastic. That hasn't changed in my 40 years living in this school district, so it's really great. I could go on and on, but I think
Thank you.
I'll let someone else go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Cindy Cummins.
President Hatcher, board members, and Dr. Monroe. I'm Cindy Cummins, and I've lived in the school district for 35 years. I'd like to encourage the board to vote unanimously to adopt the resolution ordering and calling for the special budget override election on the November ballot. The next step would be to craft information that will be critical for the district voters to understand why an override has been placed on the ballot. Understanding the financial intricacies of any school district by a layperson like myself is daunting, to say the least. The 6 financial fact sessions that Marcy Rodriguez, our district CFO, formulated and presented this past year via a Zoom training helped me to understand the individual components of what a school district's financials involve, as well as begin to understand the financial constraints any district is up against. I would encourage everyone to take advantage of this information. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Kathleen Thorius.
Superintendent Monroe, President Hatcher, members of the board. At 2 board meetings now, I've heard mischaracterizations of Lone Mountain's GSA as a, quote, sexual topics club that is, quote, grooming youth, following the speaker's statement that she has nothing against gay people. Let me be clear. To insinuate that GSAs are anything but supportive and safe spaces for LGBT youth is not only patently false, it is harmful rhetoric that further places at risk the safety and well-being of our youth, who are born in their many perfect constellations of sex, gender, race, ability, and other identities. Youth depression and anxiety are at an all-time high, and in Arizona, suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth ages 15 through 24, and the fourth leading cause of death for youth ages 5 to 14. Our very own CCUSD community is not immune to this fact. And it is often the students who are not included, not affirmed, those who are not treated equitably, who are teased, bullied, or worse for being different, for being in special education, for having autism, for being gay, who are most susceptible to suicide. For a distressing number of LGBT students, schools can be hostile, traumatizing environments. In a national survey of over 16,000 LGBTQIA youth aged 13 through 21, more than half reported feeling unsafe in school because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, and nearly 90% reported experiencing some kind of harassment. Creating safe, affirming spaces to support the emotional well-being of our young people is imperative for our schools and our families, particularly as we come out of a pandemic which has had devastating impacts. Any request to subject this club and its students to further scrutiny and public inspection is unwarranted. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Aaron Gunderson.
Good evening. This is regarding the override, just so we can differentiate between lots of good topics talked about. Good evening, President Hatcher and the CCUSD District Governing Board. I'm here this evening as a parent of children at Desert Willow Elementary School, a future PTO board member, and most importantly, a member of the Cave Creek community. I have had the privilege of growing up in Arizona and living specifically in Cave Creek for the last 8 years, and plan for this town to be my home for many years to come. There were many reasons that we chose this area for our family, some of which include Cave Creek's beautiful scenery, its warm welcome of young and old, its small and personal school district and staff that consider the community needs first, and small businesses that support all of the above. As our community has worked hard to meet the challenges of the last few years, it seems now is the most important time to circle the wagons, appropriate for Cave Creek, and make sure our constituents are well cared for and sustained for many years to come. As a social worker, real estate agent, and daughter of retired public school teachers, I have a unique perspective regarding the support of an override vote. From a financial perspective, as a real estate agent and small business owner, spending money to support an override that would allow more dollars to our community as a whole only makes sense to me. Dollars that are spent on our teachers and educational staff create stability and support for those people who did not get into this field solely for the money but still need to pay their bills. Funding our teachers funds our schools and funds our enrollment. When I show homes to people with children and even some without, the discussion of the caliber of the schools is a common conversation. Coveted school districts draw homeowners who value the resale of their future moves and families that pour their love and support into the community they love. Small business owners thrive on families who enter our community because of the strong schools we have been promoting for so many years, and I would love to continue to make those small businesses and teaching staff a priority. As a mom and purveyor of goodies for our Desert Willow staff each month, I see the direct impact of the support our teachers makes. Each time we feed them, highlight them, and pour our love into the school as a community, they respond. Supporting an override wouldn't allow us to exceed all of the other districts in pay, but it would keep us in the game.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Elaine Mcguire. Elaine Mcguire.
Hello, my name's Elaine Mcguire. I'm a Cave Creek resident. I am also a retired science teacher and school administrator. I'm here to urge you to support the budget override. One of my jobs was hiring, recruiting, and retaining qualified science teachers. I did this in a district who paid teachers 3 times what you're paying your teachers. And I know how difficult that was. So I can't imagine how you can recruit the teachers that you need here. I know there is a teacher shortage. It's nationwide. But it's going to be much worse here if you don't support the override. I'm retired. I'm on a fixed income. I would gladly pay more in taxes. It breaks my heart to see the lack of support in this community for the schools. And I just can't urge you more to support this because it's going to make a big difference in these children's future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Thomas McGuire.
Good evening, honorable members of the Board of Education. I want to get personal for a moment. My father was a factory worker. My mother suffered from polio. We had very limited income, but they put their two sons through some of the finest schools in the country because they sacrificed. Having done for me what they did, I think you and this community owe it to our students to give them the kind of quality education they cannot get without the support of the community. The economic contributions from the state are simply insufficient to have the quality of education that our students deserve and that our community deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Allison. I'm going to take a stab at this. Masog.
President Hatcher, members of the board, as a parent in the district for the past 6 years and a PTO board member at Lone Mountain for the past 4, I have seen firsthand the hard work that teachers do day in and day out, and that is why I'm here to express my support for putting the proposed override on the ballot this November. We need to be competitive with surrounding districts in teacher pay, and the override is the first step in accomplishing that. We just finished Teacher Appreciation Week last week, and while it's my absolute pleasure to spoil our amazing teachers, I fully understand that a $25 Target gift card will not help pay the bills, and a catered lunch will not fill your gas tank. As respected and influential members of the community and ardent supporters of public education, I know that the governing board's unanimous support for the override would signal the importance and the necessity of such a measure to the voters of CCUSD and hopefully be a deciding factor in getting an override passed this November. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Brooke Loyland. Brooke Loyland.
Hello. Well, first, thank you for the award. Now I'm going to, I don't like public speaking. I'm going to start with that. So I'm going to read this, but I just want to apologize for your daughter. And I want all of you, with the position that you guys hold tonight in regards to that override, it's just mind-blowing why it's because of you and your actions. You should have passed the bond. And I just don't even know what to say. But so first, I want to congratulate the CCUSD for receiving the ASBO Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for this fiscal year 21. This is an ample evidence that the district is transparent and financially responsible. It makes me angry that the board members continue to question the financial integrity of our district. You wonder why people don't trust the district? Maybe it's because we have board members who are in the community spreading gossip or lack of understanding, too, regarding rumors to call into question the district's financial reporting. For board members to bring up the fact that we need another audit after just recently receiving this award only shows how out of touch they are. And I just want to disclose, I'm a quality assurance specialist for the state. You don't need an audit to answers you already have access to. It's that you need to ask the questions. Do not waste our taxpayers' money. Do not waste the children and the families of this community deserve better. And you need to think about that when you vote tonight. And I hope to God that you make a good decision. Because if I was Dr. Monroe, knowing very well that if you would have voted unanimously, statistically for that bond, it would have passed. And now here we are. And what is your plan? What is your plan if you vote no? Because the children and families, they deserve a plan tonight, not tomorrow. Because that is what happens when you don't have a plan. So you better vote yes, or things like that are going to continue.
Thank you. Next speaker, Heather McGill. Heather.
Good evening, President Hatcher, governing board members, and Dr. Monroe. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts with you tonight. My name's Heather McGillivray, and I'm a stakeholder, parent, PTO member, and employee in our district. I think I can safely say that we are all here tonight because we believe strongly in public education and in this district. We all want to see it succeed and thrive well into the future so that our students are able to attend schools in the community in which they live. I feel strongly that our district must have an override added to the November ballot. We watch great teachers walk out because they can't afford to live on a teacher's salary in our district. We wouldn't stay in a job that didn't support our family, nor should they. We believe in public education and we believe in having certified teachers in the classrooms. But most of all, we believe in our students, and they deserve a quality education. The data provided by our Excellence Committee shows that our teachers are not being paid enough to live in today's economy. It's time we showed them their true worth and fight to get them what they deserve. Our district leaders have proven that they deserve our trust. Mrs. Rodriguez and her team have shown transparency. Mrs. Rodriguez even provides free classes to help the community understand school budgets and where every dime in our school goes, our district goes. Dr. Monroe and our leadership team can be seen all over Cave Creek, volunteering their time and making our district a true partner in our community. I hear concern about our student population decreasing, but low pay for our teachers and large class sizes is not how we grow our district. Paying competitive wages and retaining quality teachers is. The second reason I'm speaking tonight is to show support for our groups on campus. Our counselors and social workers show support for every student equally. So for those of you who are speaking here tonight on behalf of our school groups, I admire you for your passion and your courage, and I want you to know that you are supported. Thank you for your time and your commitment to your community.
Thank you. Next speaker, Brian Bunkers.
All right. Good evening, President Hatcher, Vice President Fortney, governing board members, Dr. Monroe, Dr. Jensen, Mrs. Rodriguez, and Mrs. Scott. My name is Brian Bunkers. I'm a parent of a junior at Cactus Shadows. We've been in the district since my daughter started kindergarten. I'm here today to talk about two agenda items. The first one's the override. We as a community will benefit greatly from an override. Our district as a whole has been doing more for less for as long as I can remember. Now more than ever, the governing board needs to vote in the affirmative for an override. We are at a critical juncture and will benefit greatly by continuing to provide the high-quality education for our students. Until public school funding in Arizona is fixed, an override will enable the district to attract, retain teachers, maintain, or reinstate programs that will increase enrollment, continuing the positive cycle. The second item is the audit. There's already been numerous audits in the school this year, so I'm speaking out against the call for yet another audit. As a matter of fact, CCUSD just received the Certificate of Excellence for financial reporting. That high honor confirms the district's commitment to high-quality financials and transparency. I agree, transparency. While I agree in transparency, the district's balance sheet is imperative. Another audit would add no value as the transparency we are seeking already exists. Past audits have confirmed what we already know. That is, the district continues to provide a quality education to its students with very limited financial resources. At what point are we looking for bamboo and ballots? Another audit is simply wasteful use of the district's already limited financial resources and manpower. It is imperative that we remain mindful of our financial limited resource and allocate district funds and manpower judiciously at this time. It is incumbent upon the board to allocate funds in a responsible manner that is in the best interest of the students. Every dollar spent in non-essential repetitive audit is another dollar taken from our students.
Thank you.
And Julia, congratulations on the anniversary.
Next speaker, Victoria Councilorich. Sorry if I... Victoria Councilorich. Is that close? Oh, good.
Close enough, in fact.
How do you say your name?
Kozlerich.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks. And thanks for providing me the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is indeed Victoria Kozlerich, and I have lived in North Scottsdale for 10 years. I've been a property owner here since 2002. I'm here tonight to advocate for an override on the November ballot. I read the override presentation in the board pack, and a couple of things stood out for me. Your salary comparison chart shows that similarly sized districts in Arizona pay anywhere from 8 to 22% more than Cave Creek does. Of the 10 districts listed, 2 pay less, 1 about the same, and 7 pay more, again from 8 to 22%. When making the same comparison across western states, the results are pretty similar, with Utah being the outlier paying 32% more than what Cave Creek does. Step back a little further and you discover that the national average for teacher salaries is $66,000 a year compared to Cave Creek's, which is a little north of 50. These data are important because Arizona public education is at a literal tipping point. Our legislature has so consistently underfunded public education that when adjusted for inflation, our teachers are making pretty much what they did in the 1970s. Our legislature has bolstered charter and private schools at the expense of public schools, robbing per pupil funding for over 90% of our students year after year after year. Teacher shortages, classrooms without a qualified teacher, hiring non-qualified individuals to teach our kids are all part of the same mix. And now we face the prospect of teachers retiring en masse. Over 20,000 teachers statewide are eligible to retire today. And with the hot job market, why wouldn't they? Here's a thought experiment. If 1 out of 3 teachers left this district, what would happen today? What if they left today? Last August, about a third of our state's teachers expected to leave their profession earlier than they planned. Just a couple of months ago, that number jumped to over 50%.
Thank you. Number 5. Presentations, information reports. 5.1, Fine Arts Center presentation presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
As a comment after the public comments, I just wanted to see if I could just clarify something very quickly before we moved on. We had some comments about the GSA Club. I requested some information to be given to us from administration. Nobody up here at the dais was looking to cancel the club or to limit what was going on. All we requested was information. What we received in an update was a paragraph and a half of legalese from the district attorney. We really got no information about the GSA Club. Maybe if Ms. Love would have been invited to come up and give a presentation properly, a lot of this would have ended.
I think we're out of order right now because it's not on the agenda for a discussion point. So
I would like Dr. Monroe then to invite Ms. Love to come back and give a proper presentation to the board at a public meeting so everybody can see and hear all the particulars of what the GSA Club is. I appreciate her comments tonight, but to only give her 4 minutes is not fair to her.
Noted.
Okay, so you have 2 things now. All right, thank you. Okay, Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the governing board. As you can see up there, the fee schedule update says Mr. Santina would be here presenting and with Mr. Andrew Copo. Mr. Santina's daughter is being inducted into the Junior National Honor Society this evening. So I am going to be sharing information along with Mr. Cupo tonight. So we wanted to, later on in the, should be moving, sorry. Andrew, can you move to the
I think
next
it's because
slide,
someone
please?
clicked, but
Thank
try
you.
now.
So we want to talk to you a little bit about the fee increase that's on the agenda later on this evening. And we are looking at doing a fee increase, asking the governing board to approve it for the Fine Arts Center. So the fees haven't changed for the Fine Arts Center since 2017. We did bring facility increases for our other facility use last year, but the Fine Arts was not included in that request. So this evening we want to talk to you about the Fine Arts, the services that it provides, the additional equipment that is needed. Since there was not a passing of the bond, we need to make sure our equipment is updated in that facility. These fee increases will help cover that. What we're asking for is, because of minimum wage increases, because of the cost of materials, cost of utilities, we need to make sure we're covering our cost, that the district isn't supplementing the use of facilities for the Fine Arts Center. So we've added also some additional verbiage in this that you'll see will cover regarding the Fine Arts Center amenities. We feel that these updates will allow us to continue to offer high quality services that will be able to repair the items that currently need to be updated, and that the strategic plan addresses these issues. We always like to share strategic plan and how those goals align with whatever's on the agenda, and making sure that we are running efficient operations and resources. And part of that is making sure that costs are covered for things. And we are asking the governing board later on to approve those. And also, this Fine Arts Center is used by a lot of our community partners. And we want to make sure that the service to our communities stays the high quality. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cupo, and he will cover some of the research that he's done to back the changes that we're requesting.
Yeah, President Hatcher, members of the board, thanks for having me. The Fine Arts Center is a community space. It's used by our students, it's used by our district, it's used by our community. As you can see, we've had ample usage this year. We've had about 15,000 students, teachers, community members attend a performance at the Fine Arts Center. We've provided space for community members to have their celebrations, to have their awards ceremonies, to have their dance shows. We provide a series of opportunities for students to express themselves in the arts, as well as to receive awards for their accolades in a multitude of different areas. So the space is utilized. We very much appreciate having it. We are very grateful for the space. However, there are some things that we need to make sure we take care of to ensure its continuance into the future. So after doing some research, we have decided that it's time to sort of make sure that we're in line to keep our building sustainable. The proposed rate increases you'll see in the next couple of slides are basically trying to move ourselves in line to also correct for some of the things that happen on state level, from minimum wage increases, as well as just the cost of living increases and things like that, as well as just maintaining the value of our building, making sure that when someone comes to rent our space that we're capable of providing for them what they've come to expect from us, which is a high quality a venue. In addition to that, there's expensive equipment in the building, as with everywhere around the district, and some of those things can't just be purchased through pennies and nickels and dimes. There are things that we have to save for over time to make sure we can replace. So by being able to increase our fees, we'll be able to ensure that we can continue to do so. So if you look, you can obviously look through, these are sort of how we compare to some nearby districts. You'll see Scottsdale and PV school districts both have spaces nearby that renters of our building could go to if they wanted, as well as Chandler Unified School District has a space that's similar in size. So I tried to get an array of things so you can kind of see how we might compare currently, as well as how we might compare after if you decide to agree and vote upon the proposed changes. At the bottom there, you'll see a section kind of where I tried to break out what a typical rental looks like in the space. This would be kind of like a typical dance show, someone who might show up for 2 days and rent the building. You'll see that currently we are a great value. We are by far one of the lowest priced venues in the nearby area for our main stage. In addition to that, you'll see on the next couple slides, we're also one of the greatest values for the space in our other 2 venues as well. What we're proposing is essentially just moving into an ability to sort of be in line with some of our nearby neighbors, as well as Ms. Rodriguez mentioned, cover costs, being able to sustain the building without putting a burden onto the M&O budget, potentially stealing money away from students to pay for a building that could easily be self-sustained.
Mr. Cupo, let me interrupt you for a minute. Maybe you can comment, Marcy and Mr. Cupo, on we had a lot of discussions about why not 10 to 15%? Why not 15 to 20%? Because as you can see, we're a great value. Are we leaving money on the table? And so do you guys want to comment on why we kind of talked about the 5 to 7, how we came up with that?
Yeah, so we determined while we could potentially charge more, an incremental increase would help our renters sort of plan for the future, as opposed to just doing a shocking sticker price change and potentially to price ourselves out of our clientele. Our clientele, I think, comes to us because of the value we provide to them. We have a 100% retention rate of our rentals. So when someone rents with us, it is almost 100% guarantee that they will rent from us again. And one of the things we're encouraged is that we would like to keep those partnerships going. I have a multitude of people waiting for an email from me so that they can confirm their dates for the 2022-2023 school year. And so we would like to be able to go back to them with a solution that both benefits us as well as benefits them. So while we could have increased more, we thought that a large increase once would potentially cause some distrust, as well as to provide an opportunity for our clientele to sort of plan, as well as become accustomed to potential return visits to you, to maybe potentially increase those rates, small incrementally amounts over time, as opposed to one large increase and then letting it sit, and then one large increase and maybe waiting. So this would be the main stage. This is our main theater, which seats about 430 seats. On the next slide, you'll see kind of how we compare in our sort of flexible space, our black box. There is one typo, and this is on me, so I'll take the burden for that. It does say 430 seats, but we cannot fit 430 people in that building, in that room. So it's only 150. But you can see kind of how we compare to similar use spaces where you might hold a meeting or have a smaller event. Again, I tried to break down a typical rental so you can kind of see what that might look like in the span of that time. And then, of course, the biggest area where we need to really cover costs is staffing. We currently, as you saw, we have not raised rates in about 5 years. However, the state has increased minimum wage every year since 2017. And so we are now actually essentially paying more to our employees than we are bringing in every time they work, because this has not been increased. And so we're trying to correct for that, as well as to anticipate potentially an increase in minimum wage in January of 2023, which the state does every year based on the cost of living increase. So those are kind of some basic ideas of what things might look like, of what the things would look like if you were to approve the proposal we've put in front of you. Primarily the areas that the increases are occurring are the things that wear out, things like our dance floor, which might potentially need to be replaced, trying to increase to keep up with the cost of use of that, as well as microphones and things that are incidental that might be needing to be replaced as well. I'm going to pass this back to Ms. Rodriguez to talk about the legal conversations.
Thank you, Mr. Copo. There, as I had alluded to at the beginning, there is an addition that we would like to add to our agreement. This is very standard. Majority of the other organizations that have types of facilities that they rent do have this clause. And what we are asking is for a deposit at the time that you secure the rental, and we reserve that date for you and for your organization. If you were to cancel at the last minute, there are many other organizations that would have liked to have had that time spot. So we want to make sure that when our renters occupy, they are aware of this. Mr. Cooper will be having that conversation with them. But this is something that we felt was necessary. Mr. Cooper had several cancellations last year, and we could have used that facility for other organizations. So next steps, later on in the meeting, we are going to have an agenda item, and we're going to ask that the governing board approve the increased rentals. We are presenting the whole facilities use agreement because it is part of that agreement. And no other changes were made to that agreement with the exception of these rates. And then this will be brought to the board moving forward in next year's time that we will possibly be asking for an additional incremental, as Mr. Cupo had alluded to. Is there any questions?
Your report is good. You know, I think you did a good job at breaking out those categories and comparing. And I think your discussion that you mentioned, because I thought, why aren't we asking for more, is fair to the community. And it's business, you know. We need to do it. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And this is slightly self-serving.
Sure.
Where Kiwanis is involved in this, does this apply to them?
So there are certain community members that fall under, I think, what's called Class 1 or Class 2 that the district provides space for because they primarily provide service just for students. It's similar to the way the drama club doesn't pay to rent the space, or Black Mountain Elementary School wouldn't pay to provide the space, because it's our students who are benefiting from those events, and so we don't charge those community members for those services.
Okay, I just checking because I've got to do a budget, so
yes,
need to know what I have to have in
sure.
there. Thank you.
Anyone else have questions or comments?
President Hatcher, I'll just say I appreciate Mr. Santina, who's not here, Mr. Cupo, for their work on this. I know they're both very busy, but as I've mentioned to the board before, you'll start to see yearly renewals and yearly fee increases, and it's obviously not our intention to put that on the backs of our voters. However, as you're seeing, I'd like to get into the cycle where we bring back to the board these slight fee increases, so we're good partners to our community, as opposed to gouging them, you know, just 1 year and, you know, every single year. And so I appreciate the incremental change, and I just appreciate the work by Mrs. Rodriguez and by the group.
I do want to say one more thing. Mr. Cupo, you do so much for that Fine Arts Center, and I understand the incremental increases, but for what you do and the services that facility provides, the increase really should be a lot more. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? No? All right, thank you. Item 5.2, override information presentation, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I've asked a couple of our representatives from our Excellence Committee to be with us this evening. We, a couple of weeks ago, presented to the governing board in a work study. The Excellence Committee shared information. Need some help?
It disappeared. Hold on one moment. Which one is it? The name and convention?
Information?
No, that was last time.
No, she said that's
This one.
We'll find out.
My apologies.
Yeah, that's today. Thank you. So as I share information this evening, it's kind of be a repeat of what the work study session shared with you, just a recap, and then just clarifying some of the questions that you ask of the Excellence Committee during that work study, because later on in the agenda, we are going to be asking the governing board to approve to go out for an election for an override. So just to kind of remind everybody that 15% is the max that we can go out for an M&O budget override. And this money will be invested in salaries and classroom programming. Overrides are limited time approvals. So they're approved for the first 5 years, 100% of the 15%. Then it goes down a third. And then another third in the 7th year, and then no funding in the 8th year. So typically what districts do is they'll go out to renew the overrides in the 4th or 5th year so that they can continue to offer the programs and the salary increases that they had initiated when the override was initially approved. So this is just to recap some of the feedback from the Excellence Committee. So these are some of the items that the district and the Excellence Committee is recommending for the use and the purpose of this 15%. So you can see staff salaries, and we heard that a lot this evening, that we need to stay competitive with other districts. This is an amazing district. There's wonderful people, and our kids deserve the best. We have retirements, and we need to make sure that we are attracting those new highly qualified teachers. Reducing class sizes, career and technology. So these are just a few of the items that the override would be able to fund.
Sure. And President Hatcher, members of the board, we again wanted to bring the questions that you brought up at the working session on the 25th and cover those answers for you. So this first one, President Hatcher asked about if the override doesn't pass, what are some of the consequences of that? And Dr. Monroe outlined some of the ones we don't want to hear. Consider closing a school, reduction in transportation, increased class sizes, fees, et cetera. So that is an outline that we went over.
Thank you. Hi again. So we, in our conversation last time, there was a question from Member Walker regarding did we consider having both a bond and override on the ballot? And our consultant, Paul Bentz, did respond that if we put both items on the ballot, what likely happens is, and they've seen this in a couple different places, is one issue will pass and one issue will fail. He polled the question, and the likelihood of both passing did not poll well.
Okay, and the next question, Member Brown, you asked to go into a little finer detail as far as the average salary goes. So what I was able to do from the data that Ms. Rodriguez provided and also from Arizona Auditor was do districts based on similar student size. And so I took data from 3,500 to 7,500 students, where Cape Creek Unified is at 4,700. And as a community member stated earlier, it still tells a picture that we don't pay our teachers enough, and we need an increase, and this override is going to aid in that. So you can see the vast majority of districts that are similar in size do pay significantly higher than us as far as an average teacher pay goes.
And if I could just...
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, if I could just mention, also these districts that are in similar size, they're elementary. There's one union, but none of them are unified. So the majority of the unified districts that we compete for staffing are not in this population size. So comparing our district with elementary districts, typically high school teachers make more than elementary teachers on the whole, but you can even see these elementary districts are making more than our teachers collectively. So I just wanted to point that out, that our comparable districts in size sometimes aren't unified, don't have high school and elementary both.
And I'll interrupt and add one thing here as well. As the superintendent, I look at those good quality districts and we don't compete with those districts. We are held to compete with Paradise Valley, Deer Valley, and Scottsdale Unified, which are much larger and have very good student outcomes. And so being a smaller district, I just wanted to point that out. The quality of education we provide to our students and our families is held to that standard and not to this standard. And I'm not saying that this is a lower standard, but an elementary district, in my view, is very different than a unified school district. So when I'm out in the community, people don't say, hey, Dr. Monroe, how do you compare with Littleton or Madison? They always compare us to our very good neighbors, which are very good districts that have overrides, bonds, and are 3, 4, 5 times as big as we are.
And again, to recall for the community members that don't know, that the meeting 25th notes are on there with the full presentation from the Excellence Committee that goes over the pay is about $4,000 to $6,000 more annually at those districts that are near us.
Ms. Rodriguez, on this slide, the school districts listed, would you say a majority of those receive larger dollar amounts of possibly like Title I or some other federal funds that then they're able to readdress their budget in their M&O?
Yes, Member Brown, the question of Title I and are these Title I schools, yes, I would say the majority of them are Title I schools. But what we have to remember about Title I schools is that they can use those Title dollars to supplement their basics, but not supplant them, which means they can't use the Title I's to give all their teachers a raise. What they do is use those Title I's to bring in reading specialists or, math interventionists. So typically the title doesn't afford them the increase in the salaries. What affords them that is the majority of these districts have overrides.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Member Busby asked, what was it going to cost us as a district? And when it's about $38,000 to $40,000 for the district to put this initiative on the ballot.
You want to speak to that?
Yeah,
Okay,
Member Brown, you asked the question about the Oversight Committee, that the Excellence Committee recommended an Oversight Committee. So I have done some research with that, found several districts that do have Oversight Committees for budgeting, for overrides, for bonds, Scottsdale, Deer Valley, Chandler, and several others. And they have a process. And I've spoken to a couple of their CFOs, and there is an application process, there's a selection process, and then there are standard meetings, usually quarterly, where information is brought to those committee members and the budget is reviewed and then suggestions are made. We also just wanted to remind you that we had talked about putting an FAQ in our pamphlet. So that FAQ hopefully will then inform our community the purpose and include this information about the Oversight Committee so our community feels comfortable that there will be transparency in how these dollars are spent.
And that information will be brought back to the board depending on the outcome of tonight's vote.
Yes, that is correct. That information will be shared with the governing board.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So Vice President Forte asked if we do pass this, are we already working on talking about, talking to voters, and overall, the process is we have our Excellence Committee, but at the Excellence Committee, it's really looking at the data to determine should we go for an override or bond and bring that to you as the board to make that decision, that final decision. Once that approval has been made, then we decide, yes, great. Then a political action committee is developed, and we move into that planning and implementation process to get the override and or bond passed.
And I just wanted to remind the community that district administration, after the board calls for an election, can only share the facts. So I think you all recall last year, Dr. Monroe and I appeared at several different public events where we shared facts about the bond. So that would be the same approach that we would be able to take. So we can't influence the outcome of an election, but we can definitely answer questions and share facts. So part of what we're doing this evening is asking for the board to call for this election. After that happens, then if the answer is yes and we decide to move forward, here are just some of the touch points of the timelines. The Maricopa County needs it in writing, so we need to submit something to the Maricopa County saying it is our intent to hold an election. And then things start happening. You sign the resolution, there's deadlines. for posting the notice that we're having an election. There's also a gathering of information for pro-con statements. The information is mailed out. The information pamphlets are mailed out. So you can kind of see that there's scripted things, and we will definitely be bringing things back to the governing board. One of the things that the governing board is required to approve by law, and you'll see the statute up there, by August 12th, governing board, a pro statement must be submitted. Now, this was different than a bond. That wasn't required for a bond, but this statute specifically says that a governing board must issue, if they call for an election, a pro statement in the information pamphlet. So that is something that you will be seeing as a governing board. And then you'll see October 12th, the early ballots are mailed, and then the big day is November 8th, where the election is held. Any questions?
Anybody have questions?
President Hatcher, I really appreciate once again the Excellence Committee's work. Coming back to revisit, we just wanted to allow the board to have any final questions before a vote is taken later in this meeting, so we're open to answer any questions board members may have.
Doesn't look like we do. You gave a very thorough presentation last month, so.
I do have a question. Back in, I think it was March, and that was when our compliance audit was presented. And at that time, the auditor had identified that there was a $6.2 million error in the accounting, and that was due to the energy saving lease program. And so ultimately, the auditor's decision was that, you know, our accounting was incorrect. And I know that there was this award. How do you get past that to tell the community, you know, yes, there was $6.2 million that was sitting in a bank account, and you told us that you weren't aware of it, and that was paying on the solar lease. Ultimately, there are people in the community that hear, well, there's $6.2 million that Cave Creek kind of didn't pay attention to. So now we're going to go ask for an override. How are we going to prove to this community that we're good stewards after a compliance audit, which is, you know, purely to make sure that we're adhering to standards, the accounting standards. It's not about how we're spending money or what we're doing with expenditures. That's all that compliance audit did. So from that audit, the $6.2 million came out. How are we going to relay to our community that, yeah, it was a faux pas, but we were really prudent?
Yes, let me speak to that, and then Mrs. Rodriguez, you can clarify. We've worked really hard within a year and a half to restore trust, previous to that trust perhaps being questioned before we started. However, we have very good answers for it. The majority of Americans in this nation live in consumer debt. They do not balance their budgets. We do. We've received awards for it. We're not perfect. We have our warts. I'm the first one to own any type of mistakes or things that happen, omissions, and we correct those. For people to be unforgiving, I would hope that we're trying to be transparent and show our responsibility moving ahead so that, heaven forbid, someone gets a second chance or what have you. I'm not sure. But I can't really correct things that I had no part of years ago. I've only been here a year and a half. And I'll let Marcy kind of explain more about kind of the compliance audit to what the question was.
Yeah. Yes, thanks, Member Busby. Thank you, Dr. Monroe. We did have an oversight on that, but that was a transition decision that was made. That lease was done way back when Ken was here, and then we transitioned from Mr. Leedy to myself. That money was not anything that I had signed for. Moving forward, I will be very aware of where we spend every penny. I know that entering into leases is something that the organization has had to do for a couple of years on some things that we are trying to stay efficient with energy, with solar, and a lease is the way that the organization can enter into those because we can't pass a bond in this district. And that lease money never hit the district's funds. It was in a bank. It was paid to the contractors directly. And once that money hits our bank account, that money comes out of our accounting system. It is accounted for. And that was just something that happened in transition. And now me being here full force, I will make sure that I know how every penny is accounted for in this district. And I have a staff that is amazing at making sure that those things are tracked.
So all we can do is try and hope that people assume our good intentions,
Right.
That they work with us, and that they know if they were at this meeting tonight and they hear what people are talking about valuing our teachers, that they would work hand in hand so that we can assure them that their dollars are going to go towards teacher salaries. We're going to have oversight and good accounting practices. So hopefully that helps clarify your question.
Thank you. If we go forward with this override and it should pass, what percentage of an increase are teachers going to get in their salaries?
Member Busby, that would be something that we would decide and that the board would help us determine. If the board decided to put that on the ballot, we would determine what that would be, and we've heard different figures. We had some samples as part of the presentation, but as a superintendent, I'm concerned about all of our employee groups, teachers especially, but staff. And so we would bring that to the board for discussion and for decision making, so that we can find that kind of that sweet spot. But there's no doubt that our employees, our staff, and our teachers are vastly underpaid, as the data has illustrated.
So going into it, we'll ask the voters to support an increase, but we're not going to tell them how much of an increase the staff will get?
Well, Member Busby, what we're asking the voters to do is approve $4.7 million to put towards increases in teacher pay, staff pay, additional programs. So it is the responsibility of the board, along with administration, to say, how is that best invested in our district? We have given them what would cost for a 10% for all staff, but what we see is here is where we want to be. Like, there's a target, right? We know that we want to be higher. We want to be top 25% of teacher pay. What does it cost us to get there? We want to be that top 25% of starting pay and average pay. And we want to make sure that our programs and our class sizes stay maintained. So there's going to be this balance. We will bring numbers. We're going to do research. We've given you preliminary numbers, but I'm going to do some research to really make sure we're competitive. If we've got a starting salary of $37,000, wouldn't you like to see? I know I have a young lady that I know that just signed her first contract with Deer Valley, first-year teacher, $44,000. That's where I'd like to see our first-year teachers.
It's a yes or no question that I was asking. Before I thank you. Never mind, because our guest back there seems to have the answer, so I appreciate you answering the question.
Anyone else?
You did say, if I recall, that for the override, you don't have to specify dollar funds like you did in the bond. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're asking the voters to authorize a 15% increase of our M&O budget, which would generate the first year about $4.7 million. The determination and approval of budget comes from the recommendation of the administration to the governing board. The governing board then has the authority to say, no, I don't want to see a 10%, I want to see a 15%. So we work together as an organization to determine how to best spend that $4.5 million. We will have the items listed in the FAQs to let the community know these are the types of programs that the district has identified as needs.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you for appearing before us again.
Thank you.
Number 6, action consent. Is there a motion to approve action consent as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item action consent, sorry, number 6, action consent as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Number 6 is approved as presented. So now we've pulled 6.2, so let's take that one first. 6.2, human resource items, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, the administration moves that the governing board approve the human resource items as presented.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
I wanted to pull this out. Since March, we've had, sadly, there's about 46 certified employees and 26 classified that are leaving our district for various reasons. And I just want to say thank you because many of them are very long-time employees here, and you've dedicated yourself to our school district, our students, and I appreciate all the time and effort all of these employees have put in, whether you're a long timer or a short timer. I really appreciate it, and thank you, and I wish you best of luck wherever you're going.
You're here. Thank you.
That's it.
All right, okay. Anyone else want to comment on 6.2? All right. Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 6.2 as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Motion carries. Item 6.2 is approved as presented.
President Hatcher, members of the board, I'm excited to announce the appointment of Mr. David Boggs as the new assistant principal at Sonoran Trails Middle School. He is not here with us tonight, but I'd like to read this about Mr. Boggs. He's a lifelong learner who is passionate about helping students find their purpose and joy in life. He grew up in Kansas and Texas, and he attended the University of Kansas, which makes Mrs. Rodriguez very happy.
Yes.
Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
And Mr. Womack.
Mr. Boggs taught government and history at Lawrence High School in Lawrence, Kansas for 4 years. Then an administrative leadership opportunity arose at Chase Middle School in Topeka, Kansas, where he served for 4 years. He then became the principal at Landon Middle School, where he served there for 10 years. And most recently, he's been the principal of a grade 7 to 12 school. He's supported by his fiancée, Lori Stauffer. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. And he's excited to be planning a wedding in Prescott in December. Mr. Boggs loves to read, to cook, and bake, and is an enthusiastic fly fisherman. He's excited and honored to become a part of the Sonoran Trails team. He's deeply impressed by Mrs. Sereno, the students, staff, and community at Sonoran Trails, and he's eager to lend a hand to continue and enhance the tradition of success at the middle school. So although he's not here, I want Mr. Boggs to feel very welcome, and the board will be able to meet him in person very soon.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go to item 6.7 next. 6.7, intergovernmental agreement with the City of Scottsdale for School Resource Officer for 2022-2023, presented by Ms. Nancy Diab-Scott.
President Hatcher, members of the board, we are requesting that you approve our IGA with the Scottsdale Police Department so that we can have our SRO at the high school.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve item 6.7? Is there a second?
Second.
Questions, discussion?
I just had a couple of questions on this. I'm the one that requested, obviously, to pull this out. First, in the past, the SRO salary, we've been able to have a grant that kind of helped paid for that. And I know that grant had expired. Is there some plans to maybe try to reach back out and get that, some sort of funding again on that?
Absolutely, and Mr. Dolezal's actually been working very closely with the state. We are not open for another, for the next round until the 23-24 school year, so that's why we're bringing this forward for you for the 22-23 school year. There we go. So that we can have our SRO on campus during that year, and then he is working diligently with our community to fill out that grant so that we can hopefully have our SRO at the high school through that grant.
Okay, and in the past, we've had some discussion that the SRO had requested or had received some sort of a locked storage area on campus. That's still in effect, that the SRO still has that.
He sure does, and it is bolted into the ground for his equipment.
And then
right,
one
Drew?
one other question back on page 3 on item number 13, costs and payments. Looks like there'll be a possible chance of yearly adjustments based on, it says, salary and fringe benefits of personnel assigned as SRO program. Is there any history? Are they, I mean, I know there's obviously cost increases everywhere. I don't want this, hopefully this doesn't spiral out of control at the end of at year number 5 of this agreement, and we're really, paying a much larger number than the 114,008 that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I can answer that, Member Brown. When I've been a part of this in past districts, if that was to occur, we'd bring a brand new agreement. Mrs. Scott and I actually met with the Scottsdale Police Chief and others because I wasn't content with the 75-25. I wanted it to be the 50-50. So we lobbied as much as we can. But even if there was to be a change of officer, what have you, they would still honor that salary. But if something like that did happen, I can say we would bring a new agreement to the board if that was the case, which hopefully it will not be. And hopefully, again, as Mrs. Scott kind of indicated, hopefully this is off our books completely next year. That's the hope, is that we can renew our SRO agreement for both Sonoran Trails and Cactus Shadows High School next year, and then that's a cost savings to us because of the grant. So that's what we're hoping, and I know Bill's working really hard towards that. We just kind of have this weird tweener year right now until we can really apply for that.
Do we have an upcoming then agreement with the City of Phoenix then for our Sonoran Trails SRO? Is that
We do,
usually
Member
we
Brown,
see them
that-
both about the same time?
Absolutely. We actually got notification from the Phoenix Police Department that they had to wait until a different board meeting because it has to go to their city council first, and then it can come to us. So it's actually going to their city council meeting at the end of this month. So we should have, or I'm sorry, in June, and then we should have it for you for the July board meeting, ready to go.
Very good. Thanks,
Absolutely.
everyone.
I suspect it was slowed up by the Phoenix PD Police Chief's announcement,
Yes.
as well as suddenly being down 400 to 500 officers, that it got a little slower this year. So we'll bring it back to you probably this next month.
Okay, additional comments? All right, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 6.7 as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Item 6.7 is approved. Number 7, old business. 7.1, 2021-2022 budget revision number 1, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Daniel, if you can please pull up the presentation. We'll just scroll through this. This is just a few slides. First, I'd be remiss in not thanking Dr. Monroe for the recognition for the Certificate of Excellence Award that the school district did receive. I'm very proud of the work that the people in the Business Services Department do in making sure that we stay compliant, and it's a lot of work putting those financials together, and the information that we have to provide is pretty significant. So we take that very seriously in the finance department to make sure that we're providing accurate information to the public for those reports. And thank you to Ms. Ms. Cummins, for giving a shout out for the finance education classes. I think that one of the goals that I have, and when Dr. Monroe brought me on board, was educating the community on school finance. it's kind of complicated. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and I like to think that I can break it down into simplistic terms to where a layperson could understand how it works and appreciate how their tax dollars are being spent. So part of that transparency is we bring the budget to the governing board, and we usually do this about 3 times a year. We'll do it you propose a budget, we adopt a budget, and then now this is revision time. So every May, we have the opportunity to revise, and there's a couple of things that change during the year. Since school districts are on real-time funding, which means we get paid for the kids who attend this year. That was changed several years ago. Used to be we got funded on kids that we educated in the prior year, and then we'd get growth if we got additional kids above that. Since we're on real time, you have to be a really good prognosticator to say, I think we're going to get this many kids. We did pretty good this year with the revision. Our enrollment's been pretty steady this year, so there's not a whole lot of movement in this budget. So you can see where we adopted it at 32.7, and then we're revising it today, and you will have an action, the action item to do this right now, to revise this budget up to 33. So increased about $500,000, and there were some additional special education weights. There was in some adjustments in ADM that we made. We were a little low in our projection. So, but that's a pretty close projection. We're projecting our expenses to be about 32.3. Now, we won't actually know what those actual expenditures are until we close our books at the end of August. So in October, by October 15th, we bring you our annual financial report, and that shares with you exactly what we spent and where we spent it. But I'm projecting about an $800,000 carry forward in our M&O. As you know, last year we really struggled in this area. Thank goodness that we had ESSER funds to cover the deficit. But last year I looked back at this presentation and there was a deficit balance forward. But this year I am projecting will be in the positive about $800,000. And so here's some of the changes as I talked to, a little bit of updated ADM, special education. And when we increase in our special education count, those kids are weighted higher than a gen ed kid. So for instance, an autistic child, if we received enrollment from an autistic child, they would receive about 6 times the amount in funding as a gen ed kid. Now, we know that the cost to educate some of those students outweighs what we actually receive, but that's why the revision in the budget was we received a few special education kids that bumped that up. A little bit of a decrease in district additional assistance, and that was just because there was a minor adjustment. District additional assistance is funded on prior year, and so we had an adjustment on a prior year enrollment. And then revisions to federal and state grants. At the time that we adopt, we don't have carryover. We're allowed to carry over a certain amount of money in federal and state grants, so I updated that in this revised budget. And then an increase in classroom site fund. That was a nice surprise that we had projected a little bit lower in classroom site fund, and so that will be additional that you'll see in this budget copy that you're going to be approving in a minute. So here's some next steps. So I just want to kind of talk to you through about what you can expect then in this process. So we're going to revise tonight, then we'll propose a new budget for next year in June. And then we have a hearing, similar to what we did tonight. It's like a call to the public. We publish the proposed budget and everybody gets to look at it, and then the public can come and say, hey, I have a question about that line on the budget. And then they can come and then we can answer any questions they have. We will adopt that June 27th. These dates are already set on the governing board calendar. And then that annual audit that we got the award for this evening, or from that we announced this evening, that is that starts in June. We start doing preliminary work with the auditors. They come out here. And this is along with, the other 8 audits that we've had this year by various other agencies as well. So the auditors are with us probably for about a week or 2. We provide a lot of information to them. They take it back and they compile it all. And then they come back out in October when our books are closed. That's that October, we're closing books at the end of September. And then they look at our final financials and make sure that we've recorded everything and we've coded everything accurately. Then we will present the annual report, as I mentioned, by October 10th. So if there are any other questions about the budget, I'd be happy to entertain them at the moment.
We need a motion.
Oh,
We need
sorry.
recommendation from you.
I recommend that the governing board approves the revised FY 2022 budget as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right, questions or comments? Kind of is what it is, isn't it? I mean.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. Thank you, President Hatcher. It is now revised to reflect more accurate numbers.
Mhm. No questions? No comments? All right. Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.1, 2021-2022 budget revision number 1 as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Motion carries. Item 7.1 is approved as presented. Number 8, new business. 8.1, Arizona School Boards Association ASBA submission of proposed issue for consideration for the 2023 political agenda, presented by me, Beth Hatcher. All right, one moment. My many papers here. The recommended action is that I move that the governing board reaffirm the top 4 priorities for ASBA's 2022 political agenda. So this sounds kind of confusing. We're reaffirming or not reaffirming what exists for 2022 for the 2023. And submit one additional priority that we would like the legislative committee to consider if we see fit. Is there a motion to reaffirm the top 4 stated priorities
So
as
moved.
presented? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right. So, comments. So we all have the handout that was given to us with the 4 priorities and then the bullet points under it. So I'm assuming everybody's read that. So the first priority they list is adequately and equitably fund district schools to at least the national median per pupil funding. Is everybody good with that?
Good.
Yep.
Okay. The second one they present is preserve and strengthen local control. Are we good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Third one, improve outcomes for all students.
Good.
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 All right. And the fourth one is require public accountability for taxpayer dollars spent on education. Are we good with that?
Good.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody want to add anything? If we do, we can add one item.
Well, President Hatcher, I would like to, as we did last time on this, we did put forth a request to have the legislature look at the equalization formula again. This is something that districts like ourselves are really hit badly with. We are losing millions of dollars that our taxpayers are paying that goes directly out of this district. And when the district is in the situation where we are in, where we have not been able to get overrides and bonds passed, hopefully that will change real soon. It puts us in a real financial strait, and yet they still take this money. It's been close to getting looked at before, but it has not, so I would like to see it added for this year.
Okay. I would agree with that. What do the rest of you think about addressing the equalization funding formula?
That's been our biggest beast.
Yeah.
So that should be number 1.
Yeah. All right, so everybody's good with that one?
The same thing.
Yeah, okay, all right, good. So that would be our 5th one, which they allow. Okay. Any other comments about this item, 8.1? All right, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to reaffirm with the addition, which they allow us to make an addition, the top 4 priorities, adding the 1, to the ASBA's 2022, really the 2023 political agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstain. Motion carries. Item 8.1 is reaffirmed with our 1 addition as presented. Item 8.2, facility use agreement presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. As a little bit of background, we did present information to the governing board earlier in the meeting. This facility use agreement reflects the district's obligation pursuant to the Arizona Revised Statute 151105, which states that the district-owned facilities may be made available for public use, and the governing board adopts the spirit and the intent of this public law by making the district facilities available to the public. And the spirit of the community partnership and collaboration, the proposed fees are intended to recover direct costs associated with the public use of the facilities over and above which is considered regular use of CCUSD's facilities by its students. The Facilities and Construction Department are recommending the rental fee increase for the use of the Fine Arts Center. The Fine Arts Center rate has not been increased since 2017, and the increase will bring our rates to par with surrounding districts. No other rate charges will be made. It is moved that the governing board approve the facility use agreement as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, are there questions or comments? We've already had that presentation, so, all right. So hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 8.2, facility use agreement as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion carries. Item 8.2 is approved as presented. Item 8.3, approval of the extended campus agreement with the University of Puget Sound and the district placement agreement with Ottawa University, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So the extended campus agreement with the University of Puget Sound provides an opportunity for graduate students enrolled in occupational therapy and physical therapy programs to complete their internships and practicums with the Cave Creek Unified School District, and working alongside our occupational therapists and our physical therapists. The district's placement agreement with Ottawa University provides an opportunity to placement of student teachers, counseling interns, practicum, observations, internships with students enrolled in the program related to their certificated educational careers. So placement agreements with our partners in higher education provides an opportunity to build a pipeline for recruiting and deepen the pool, hiring well-trained, well-prepared, and well-vetted quality candidates. So this agreement will be reviewed, has been reviewed by our attorney. So it's moved that the governing board approve the extended campus agreement with University of Puget Sound and the district placement agreement with Ottawa University as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? It's just an excellent idea. I mean, it's an excellent opportunity for us to possibly acquire new employees, as you stated. It's a pipeline, so I'm all in favor of that partnership. Additional questions or comments?
Agree with you.
Okay. Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 8.3, approval of the extended campus agreement with University of Puget Sound and the district placement agreement with Ottawa University as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Motion carries. Item 8.3 is approved as presented. Item 8.4, approval of the Educational Services, Inc. phased retirement staffing agreement for the 2022-2023 school year, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, this is a renewal of an agreement that we've had for several years with ESI. ESI allows our staff who are ready to retire to come back and actually work for us. They're not quite ready to retire, but they can take advantage of this program. The beauty of this is we get highly qualified, experienced teachers that want to come back and work through ESI as a contracted employee for us because of some IRS Arizona State requirements, retirement requirements, that they can't retire and then come back to work for an organization that has the retirement plan. The great thing about this is we get the employees back at a reduced salary as well. So we're getting highly qualified staff at 85% salary. So it's recommended that the governing board approve the Educational Services Incorporated Phased Retirement Staffing Agreement for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have one question. Under this ESI contract, are we then also covering their benefits, or is that covered by ESI?
Member Busby, those benefits are covered by ESI.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Rodriguez, do we have any staff that you know of that's possibly going to use this program in the upcoming school year?
Yes, and Member Brown, we do have a few staff members that have already reached out to our Human Resources Department and asked to be able to on this. This is available to all staff, so not just teaching staff, but also some of our classified staff are taking advantage of this program.
Thank you.
We encourage the program very strongly as well, because it's a great way to retain good quality staff for our kids, for, as Marcy said, people who aren't quite ready to retire but will give us another year or two. So to your point, President Hatcher, it's another way, another thing that we can dangle in front of people to keep them with us for longer.
Okay, any other questions? All right, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 8.4, approval of the Educational Services, Inc. Phased Retirement Staffing Agreement for the 2022-2023 school year as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Item 8.4 is approved as presented. Item 8.5, approval of Global Ambassador Program's Host School Agreement and ESI Host School Agreement for the 2022-2023 school year, presented by Dr. Patty Jensen.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board. Some background is our Global Ambassador and ESI Host School programs work with international teachers to provide them an opportunity to work in a cultural exchange program in the United States while learning valuable professional skills, improving English language skills, and learning about the culture and history of the U.S. Cave Creek Unified School District is requesting to partner with Global Ambassador and ESI. These agreements will allow CCUSD to access a broader network of international applicants who may be a good fit for our world language programs. These agreements have been reviewed and approved by our attorney. The administration recommends that we move that the governing board approve the Global Ambassador Programs Host School Agreement and ESI Host School Agreement for the 22-23 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second. Questions?
I do have a question. How much does this cost us? Or is there, what kind of fees are associated with it? Do we pay per person we get through this program?
I believe there are some fees. I will say that the number of teachers that they provide us definitely is worth it, because we're not able to find all of those teachers, unfortunately,
no,
here
and I
on our
understand
side.
that. I'm just curious, like, what does this cost?
I don't have the exact figures. We'd have to research that and get back to you on that. I can do that.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 8.5, approval of the Global Ambassador Program's Host School Agreement and ESI Host School Agreement for the 2022-2023 school year, as presented. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Item 8.5 is approved as presented. Drum roll. 8.6, to consider, discuss, amend if desired, and if deemed advisable, to adopt a resolution ordering and calling a special budget override election to be held in and for the district, and declaring the deadline for submitting arguments for and against the election to the Maricopa County School Superintendent as August 12, 2022 at 5 p.m. Presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So we shared a little bit of information about the recommendation. The Excellence Committee did a very good job at identifying why this override is needed. I do have, our attorney unfortunately was double booked for board meetings tonight, and I do have him available by phone if there's any legal questions. But what we are presenting, there are several steps to calling for an election. First step is to adopt the resolution calling for it. We have posted it. We have met the requirements to post the agenda within 24 hours. There will be, as you saw in our presentation earlier, several other time requirements that we will have to meet with the county, get pamphlets to the county, pro-con statements. Those are published. So as soon as the governing board, if they choose to call for the election tonight, we will send that immediately to translation to make sure that those notices are published in newspapers where people know that they can send in the pro-con statements. We work very closely with our legal team on this. They provide all the documentation, you see the legalese that's in the agenda itself. This is very scripted, how we have to call for elections. The language that we use is just prescribed in statute. So sometimes it doesn't make sense to the layperson, but it is what's required by law. So this evening, what we're recommending is that the governing board consider, amend, desire, and deemed advisable to adopt the resolution that is attached to this board agenda in calling for a special budget override election to be held for the district, and declaring the deadline of submitting the arguments for and against it, the election to the Maricopa County Superintendents by August 12th of 2022, and in the resolution there are the details of the election date.
Is there a motion to approve item 8.6 as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments? Questions? Okay. Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 8.6 as presented. We'll do a roll call vote. So reasons for me to vote aye, if I'm going to do that for an override. Some feedback from the bond failure revealed that voters preferred to vote for teacher pay rather than things. School districts have limited resources for income. We have no product from which to derive income. Therefore, we receive money from the federal government for specific purposes, the state, and through our tax base. Due to the punitive nature of the state funding formula, the CCUSD students, staff, and stakeholders are not sufficiently funded. We're forced to go to the stakeholders. Our salaries need to be competitive with bordering school districts so that we can attract and retain excellent teachers and staff. The old paradigm here in Cave Creek does not exist anymore. Staff are no longer willing to work here simply because of hometown loyalty. Housing prices are high, and teachers and staff need to earn a salary on which they can provide for themselves and their family. They can't afford to remain here. Cave Creek is not a work destination. So we don't have people from Tempe, Scottsdale, and Phoenix coming up here, but we have the reverse, and those parents can take their kids to other school districts. So it's an impediment for us. The teaching profession is not on parity with other professional fields who hire college graduates. We're way off. Additional funding allows the CCUSD to provide programs and resources for our students, and they may be encouraged to remain in district for their education. As a board member of this school district, I have an obligation to our students and staff to seek proper funding so that the CCUSD is a provider of an excellent educational experience. It's critical to the viability and long-term sustainability of the CCUSD. And my last reason before I vote is the most important to me. I have some letters from Mrs. Maximoff's class, 4th grade class at Black Mountain. And I read to them for Seuss Day, Read Across America. So some of them are from Vivian, Amelia, Sophia, Logan. Those kids can't be here speaking for themselves tonight. but I'm going to be their voice and the voice of the staff, and so I vote aye on an override. Member Busby?
I will vote aye.
Member Brown?
In the spring of 2007, this school district went out to our community to request their approval for a maintenance and operations override. The community approved this request, and the override was in effect for 7 years. Now, here we are, 15 years later. School district is again looking to ask our community for their support and approval by placing a maintenance and operations override question on the ballot this November. All I can ask is that our community have the chance, examine the financial information, examine the information to be in the pamphlet, and make their decision with their vote in November. To that, I will vote yes to place this override question on the November 2022 election ballot.
Member Walker?
I vote yes.
Member Fortley?
Well, so much for drama. Just a couple things that I did want to say about this. The fact that our teachers are paid less than what comparable teachers around here pay has been going on since I worked here. It's one of the reasons, unfortunately, I had to leave back in 2012. I could not afford to work here anymore. I've seen and heard from other teachers that have desired to come here from other districts, ones that actually they graduated from Cactus Shadows and wanted to come back here. And then when they got into talks with the human resources, could not do it because of the huge gap. So we were losing out on teachers that even want to come here. I can't imagine sitting by and letting that continue to happen. So I vote yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry, let me go back. Thank you, Board. So the motion passes. Do I need to reread that whole thing? The motion passes to put the override on the ballot, and we will have the resolution containing the resolution. So the motion unanimously passes on item.
Do we have paperwork now that we have to sign before we leave tonight?
Yeah, we do, don't we?
Okay.
On something else, yeah.
Yeah, if I may answer that question, Member Brown. The resolution is signed by the governing board president, but I do need you all to sign the revised budget.
Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you for that one. Number 9, future agenda items. Okay, so this, I'm going to start at the bottom because the narrative's long. So this is submitted by Member Brown, presented by me, Beth Hatcher. Item 9.1. At this time, I would like for the governing board to discuss and immediately begin the process to thoroughly review the district's overall financial picture and using the services of a certified public accounting firm to provide a complete performance audit so that the district can give a detailed report to our shareholders and community members and a clean and complete presentation stating how well the district is managing our costs, what the district is financially doing well, in which specific financial areas the district can do better, as well as how district funds could be saved or better utilized in the education of our students. As Ms. Marcy Rodriguez, CCUSD CFO, has stated in a recent district budget update given to the governing board, quote, the Cave Creek Unified School District has over 50 different funds to manage and monitor. Each of these funds has a different purpose and laws that govern their use, unquote. To the complexity of school district funding and the past and current spending of public taxpayer monies to operate the district, as the district is possibly going to ask our stakeholders and community for approval of a maintenance and operations override in the upcoming November election, to be transparent in the district finances would go a long way to assure our stakeholders and community members that the district is doing everything possible to be careful in what has been spent in the past, as well as what is being spent in the current fiscal year budget, as well as the planning for the upcoming budget years for the operations of the Cave Creek Unified School District. So the recommended action is to vote to approve placement on an upcoming agenda. Is there a motion to approve item 9.1 as presented? Is there a second? Okay, so for the board knows this. We can't explain the reasons for our votes. So we're going to look kind of dumb. So we're just going to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Member Brown's an aye. Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Nay. Abstained. The motion fails. Moving on to number 9. Oh, sorry. 6.6 was pulled, and we're going to address it here. So let me go back to my... All right, so now we'll entertain item 6.6, disposals, shredding, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, it's moved that the governing board approve disposals shredding as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
I had pulled this out just because of the one item on the second page, the 2013-2014 from the Finance Department on the audit backup. Since the future agenda item has been defeated, then there's really no need to discuss this item any further, so.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 6.6, disposal shredding as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Motion carries. Item 6.6 is approved as presented. All right. Number 10, upcoming calendar events. 10.1, upcoming calendar events presented by Dr. Court Monroe.
President Hatcher, members of the board, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the Fine Arts Center, we have our Inspire Excellence Awards for our employees and for others. On May the 18th next week, we'll have our celebrations for our Sonoran Trails 8th grade students. And as mentioned previously, on May the 19th, we will culminate with our Cactus Shadows High School commencement, our graduation at Grand Canyon University at 7 p.m.
Okay. 11.1, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained. The motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.